Hello and a very warm welcome along to Real Israel. My name is Paul Alster, and I'm delighted to be here with you in the fourth of a series of special interviews with some exceptional people here in the state of Israel. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by Dr. Anita Shkedi, who is a pioneer in Israel of treating traumatic brain injury and PTSD through therapeutic riding. Now, Anita's is a remarkable story of a young girl from the Lake District who went on to a career in medicine down in London, then emigrated to Israel, where she's had all sorts of triumphs and tragedies. But her work, in particular in therapeutic riding, has set her apart from others and has seen her establish a worldwide reputation. So I'm delighted to welcome Anita to the show. It's really great to talk to you, Anita.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul.
And we're going to come on and talk in due course about your new book, which is Horses Heal PTSD, Walking New Paths, which is out recently. We'll come to talk about that. But yours is an amazing story of someone who's created a life here in Israel for more than 35 years, isn't it? And
Yes.
Not so very long ago, you received a very, very special award, which was the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame Award, which is a really remarkable thing. And I'm just going to read the citation, which says to Dr. Anita Shkedi, the director of the INTRA, the Israel National Therapeutic Riding Association, for her contribution to therapeutic riding in Israel that has improved the life and well-being of thousands of challenged and disabled children and adults. What a marvelous achievement. That must have been a very proud day when you received that award.
It was actually quite overwhelming because just before it, in the same year, I'd received my doctorate, which was a very formal event, and everybody turns up and there's all the dignitaries and looking all like royals and things in England. So this was a one type of event. And then I came back to this wonderful occasion, which was held in the Wingate Institute. And I was asked to speak. And suddenly in my head, I was completely overcome by the thought of, it actually hit me what I felt, what I'd done, and how many people were continuing the good work. It wasn't just then suddenly about me, it was about all the other people in this world who are working with therapeutic riding and helping so many disabled and challenged people. And it was overwhelming just to talk about it. And it was also overwhelming to see friends and colleagues sitting there because they'd all been part of this fantastic thing that had happened. When I started off, I remember I was like one woman, one horse, and running through the Pardisim, which are the orange groves. I'm running around with this horse with disabled people stuck on the top. And it wasn't done very safely. But gradually there were kind of people who came to help me. And more and more people came, and more disabled people came. And the whole thing just grew from this moment. I remember the first time I took money, which was quite an event. I had a volunteer who came every Friday from the army, she's some famous psychologist in America. And she came to help me, and because I'd come from England and I didn't believe in taking money for therapeutic riding, I thought I should do this voluntarily. And it was a day in Israel and it was pouring with rain. And we were running through the Pardisim together. And this lady who was on top of the horse, kept complaining about her hair and her hairdo because it was Friday and she just had her hair done. When she got back, and we were absolutely drowned rats and exhausted, she turned and she said to the other person, well, really, I suppose I should pay for this. So the other person said to her, yes, you're going to pay Anita. And I don't know what she paid me, something like 10 shekels or something. But it was my first payment. And then I became a charity after that. So,
and the charity has done so many amazing things. I've seen it myself, the work. And you work with so many people. We'll come on to that in just a few moments. But I just want to take you back because yours has been an amazing story, really. As I pointed out in the introduction, you grew up in the Lake District, didn't you, where your father was a scientist working at the nuclear power plant. And that's where you first developed an association with horses and ponies.
It was the farmers' horses at the. I lived in a house called High Duddon. It was at the head of the Duddon Valley. And below us, near Duddon Bridge, if people know where this is, near Broughton in Furness, there was a farm. And the farmer's daughter was a great show jumper. So little Anita, who was a little Jewish girl from London and dreaming about horses, she hooked herself into this farm and managed to get herself free rides. And I used to actually pinch horses. I used to take a little white horse, bring it home, tie it to the back door. My mother used to go nuts with me because I never tied it properly. And then she'd be running through the woods trying to rescue this horse that I'd lost. So
I think the statute of limitations has passed actually for horse theft in the Lake District. So I think you'll be okay. So you developed this connection with horses, but as you grew up and you decided what to do with a career, you decided to go into nursing, which later on, of course, would lead you to this amazing shilov, as we say in Hebrew, this combination. But you went off, I think, first to study zoology, wasn't it, before nursing?
Well, before, yes, because my father, he had the Jewish dream sort of thing that his children should be, doctors or lawyers or accountants. So I was, he was very keen that I followed this idea to be a doctor. But I did a deal with him. I said to him, if I get into Great Ormond Street Hospital, then you have to be willing to let me go there, because I was absolutely in love with the hospital. And there was actually in those days almost a Jewish quota. There was a Catholic quota and a Jewish quota when I was a kid. I was 17 and I made it. I was 1 in 200. So my father couldn't really say anything, except he tried to frighten me off a bit. But off I went and became a nurse at Great Ormond Street. And I'm very proud. It was a wonderful place. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I can still smell the green paint in the intensive care unit. It's in my brain.
Wow. And it was while you were in London that you met your first husband, didn't you? And he was training to be a rabbi.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Mickey was, we actually knew each other from fairly young, and our families knew each other, and he was studying to be a young rabbi and a new rabbi, and I was a nurse. So we lived very frugally. We didn't have very much money, and today I think about it, what we could buy for £5, in a huge bag of food we used to have. So anyway, we live very carefully.
And then after he qualified as a rabbi, you moved back north, as I recall, to the Manchester Chester area, where you became a Rebbetzin, the rabbi's wife in the community. Yes.
Oh dear, we had some fun. I had some fun because I also worked as a district nursing sister there in the Greater Manchester area. So I met people as the Rebbetzin and their nurse. And one day I went to, I'm not even disclosing the district, but I went into a house in a certain area. And as I walked through the door and I'm coming in as the nurse, they look at me and shock and horror. They've got the frying pan working and it's full of bacon. And the bacon went up in the air. And I disappeared very quickly up the stairs to deal with the sick person.
Right. So they
suddenly it was some funny events.
They realised the health visitor was also the rabbi's wife that they saw in the...
Yes. I did the health visiting as well. And the health visiting was, most of my work was with non-accidental injuries. So I saw a really, really sad side of the British life and things that we really, some horrible things.
Yes.
So...
And then obviously you started a family and you had a couple of children, a son and a daughter. And then at some point, you and your husband decided you wanted to leave England and make a life in Israel.
Yeah.
But unlike most of the people, Anita, when I made Aliyah, my family and I, we had 16 suitcases rushing around Heathrow Airport trying to get them all on a plane. But you decided, being the sort of adventurous sort you were, and obviously your husband was similar, to come to Israel in a very unique fashion.
Yes, we did. And my ex-husband, Mickey Boyden, he really wanted to sail to Israel, and he bought himself a boat. And I went along with the whole idea. I wasn't against the idea. So we left from Liverpool, and we left in the boat. And it took us 5 months, I think, to get to Israel. And I remember it took us twice to get out of Liverpool because the water was so rough. We tried to get out, we came back. But the funny thing was we filled it with food. And we had all these salami sausages hanging from the cabin inside. It looked really awful. But, we were on dried food and we were thinking about, how to take care of ourselves on this it was a long journey, a very dangerous journey. We went through some very violent storms. But we made it. And it was quite a moving thing to come into Israel by a small boat because...
Where did you land? At Haifa or Ashdod or Ashkelon, Tel Aviv?
No, we came right into Tel Aviv. We came right into the harbour of Tel Aviv. But, as you pass Cyprus, they come and check your boat and everything. The sea is just full of activity. And I mean, people have no idea what's going on at sea unless you're a strange boat coming in, and we put up, the flags and we sang the Hatikvah and we were a couple of lunatics, I think, at that time, completely. We had no idea what we were doing.
It's an amazing image, really, of the rabbi and his wife and the 2 children with all the sausages sailing in, sailing all the way from Liverpool to Tel Aviv. It's a remarkable story. And you came and you settled in Israel, and like so many of us that come here, it's never easy at the start. And for you and your husband, things didn't work out, and you chose to go your separate ways.
Yes, it didn't. You see, I think we were probably maybe typical of many other couples. It's really hard to leave one country where your life is successful, you both have great jobs, your family's doing well, and you have no idea really what you're coming to here. It was so different. Even if you just say from the weather, it's so different. And I think it's hard when things don't work out and you you're not really part of the system to fall back, and you can't sort of regroup and think, well, let's do the. You turn to it yourselves into a kind of survival mode, and that definitely happened to me. I just, while we were living on the boat, I suddenly became completely aware, oh gosh, I've got to make sure we have food on the table. And this pushed me out to do any job I could do. And I thought, well, I can't do my nursing here. And I did go and try to find out about the nursing and health visiting they'd never heard of at that time. So I thought, well, the other thing I'm quite good at is horses. So I went looking for a job, and I went to a place it used to be called the Jockey Club years ago. And I started teaching riding, and it wasn't my profession, but at least I felt I was bringing home some money for put food on the table. And for Mickey, it was even more difficult because he was he was a reform rabbi, and he had to overcome a lot of major issues to get himself into work here. So it was a difficult start for both of us, and in the process, we went our separate ways. And we're actually meeting tomorrow for the Seder.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
but your children enjoyed the life here in Israel. That's something that the children took to quite happily. I think they're more adaptable, aren't they, kids, when they come here? And,
yes.
And your son in particular was very much into cycling, I recall. I recall you telling me.
Oh, yeah, he was crazy about the bicycle, and every time I went to England or anything, or he built his own bicycle, which I keep in the shed in the garden. I'd never get rid of it. But he became a fantastic cyclist. He won the Canary race. I think he was like the junior cycling champion. But one time, after Vicky, I married a man called Giora Shkedi, and Giora was never on time for anything. That was, he had his own clock. We called it Giora time. Jonathan wanted to do a Canary race again. So we were late. We were 8 minutes late. And he said, well, never mind. I'm getting on the bike. And he just went. He came in second after being 8 minutes behind everybody else. I mean, he just was amazing on a bicycle. He was single-minded over it.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Jonathan, if that's okay with you, Anita, because of course your experience here in Israel has been of amazing highs and lows. When people come and make Aliyah and come to live in Israel with a young family, you're always thinking about the point at which your children are going to serve the country, serve in the military or in any other fashion that is suitable, national service or whatever. And your son Jonathan went into the military, and he started off in the Navy, didn't he, originally?
He was in the Shayetet for well over a year. He said it was the water. Who knows? We came through the most appalling storms, and maybe, I don't know, we really don't know. But he suddenly, he's saying that he was a very good soldier. Even in the Shayetet, and they the only way I can say they recognized it by they kept coming to his grave and afterwards for his memorial days. So he was a good soldier there, but he changed and he went into the Orev, which is another special unit. He particularly loved that unit because of their work with jeeps, and he loved that. And he had an amazing Mempei.
This was during the time of the Lebanon War, wasn't it, Anita? This was during the time of the Lebanon
War. And he was in a lot of fighting, and he did some amazing things. He rescued people. This is a true story, and he never told me about it. I just saw the blood on his uniform when he came home. He carried somebody who died. He brought him out to the Bekaa Valley on his shoulders. Jonathan was incredibly strong. He had some super strength, and they wrote about it, how he brought this person back to where they couldn't get helicopters, they couldn't put them on, what do you call those canvas bed thing? He had to just carry him like a sheep around his shoulders. And people, after he died, came, the family of the boy, the other person, came and thanked me for this. Jonathan was a fantastic soldier.
And you lost him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Back in '93, was it?
Yes. He was he was going on another rescue mission into the Bekaa Valley to a place called Suju. Actually, the name of I think he was higher up. I don't know his position, but his name was Avi Miller from Renana. And he'd already unfortunately died. Jonathan was on the outside of this, I never say it properly, the McNash, they like a, yeah. And he was sitting he was very good with guns, and he was sitting on the outside with a gun with another person called Daniel Ray. And unfortunately, they both got hit by a bomb landing nearby, and Daniel got hit in the chest and died immediately. And Jonathan got a piece of shrapnel that went through just above his eye. And he was in the Rambam for 3 weeks. And I can say he died in my arms.
And that's obviously
very hard.
Incredibly hard and traumatic. And, a lot of time has passed since then. And after you lost Jonathan, your work with disabled and soldiers, of course, must have meant that much more to you, trying to create a way to recover from their trauma, both physical and mental.
It was so much more because we sit, 7 days of Shiva here. And during the Shiva, I was thinking, well, I have a choice. I kind of have a choice. And people had told me that you either just, shut yourself up and stay at home and grieve. And I understand that. Or you try and work your way out of this. So I went back to work after 7 days, and it was a remarkable event because into my office came a mother with her son who had a traumatic brain injury, a very severe traumatic brain injury. And she was talking to me, and she didn't really know about Jonathan, but she was talking to me, and then she'd explained how this son had been in an ambush and in the Lebanon, and he was severely injured. And then she told me about her other son who'd also been severely injured. Well, by the time she'd finished talking to me, I'd made up my mind, and that was it. I just wanted to go on. There was a lot of work to do.
And that seems to have been the catalyst for it. And I've seen your work myself. I went to Intra. I saw you. My daughters rode there a little bit. I saw the work that you do, which is extraordinary. Now, here in Israel, there's a kind of we'll get by way of doing things, yeh beseder. And the word kitzur derech is very much part of the lexicon here, which means a shortcut. And people don't like to go through all the processes if they don't have to. If there's a quick way to get from A to Z, that's what they will find. But you were very determined to establish courses to train people to be instructors, but also teaching them to ride properly as patients by the book. And I remember hearing when I first was about to go and meet you that this was a really tough woman. You know, you can't mess with her. She's a real handful. And then I met you and you're absolutely lovely. And what I understood was that you just do things correctly by the book in a very English or British way, which was alien to many people here when you started out.
Oh, yes. This was, I mean, okay, I go back a little bit. When this was even before I came to Israel, I was giving, trying to donate to Israel and help Israelis. And there's a kibbutz, actually called Kibbutz Eyal, and I was going there quite regularly. And I brought them because they had a farm and they had riding. I brought them riding hats, and I brought them saddles, and I brought them bits and pieces. Every time I flew across, I brought something. And, they take it from me and say, thank you very much, and never see it again. And then one day, when I was watching the people, they would take a helmet and they'd carry it under their arm while they were riding, So I realized, there's a long way to go. And cleaning the leather was the funniest thing because, in England, you learn how to polish leather and, spit and polish or whatever it is. And I asked them, well, how do you clean the leather? So they was, we've got engine oil, so that'll do. So they dipped the leather in engine oil. That kept it oiled, Yeah. that was fine. So that was the beginning. And to this very day, I'm even worse, I think, now. I'm now worrying about security and the safety of farms. We're now in a different world, and you cannot take risk. You cannot, crazy things that I might have done in the beginning, you cannot do. They have to be insured, and they have to do things even more correctly today, because people, if somebody has an accident, they will be sued. So it's a different world. It's a completely different world. I have to just tell you one funny thing. When I started with in Givat Chaim, I was teaching there, and somebody's standing by the fence, a man, and he's looking at me, and he's saying, and I asked him who he was, and he said, I'm from an insurance company. He said, I've come to watch you. He said, we have no idea how we're going to insure people in this country. Wow. And it started from that. And the man's still in the business to this day.
Yeah.
Doing it.
Well, I want to ask you, Anita, about the its special connection between horses and people that has prompted you to develop this amazing career and support for so many people. And if you can explain to me what it is about being on a horse that helps people that are either physically or mentally disabled as a result of either injury or illness. Can you explain exactly what it is that they get out of the riding therapy?
Okay, so I want to speak about this in two ways. One, that it has a huge effect upon us emotionally, socially, and we feel that, we've found a real friend who will listen to us and can help us to change our lives. So many people who have physical disabilities, who have challenges, have many problems socially, they have problems meeting people, they find that they have often a lower self-esteem, they're not confident, and suddenly they meet up with this wonderful creature called the horse, who has been in their dreams even before they were born. It's in our psyche, it's in our mind, because we've been with horses forever. So some people will even use the expression that it's in our DNA, but it's definitely in our collective unconsciousness. It's there. And so the person comes to this horse and they feel that they've found a silent friend who listens to them, who will show them how to do things in the right way and to make them feel good. Now, when they're sitting on top of the horse, the same thing happens to their body. Suddenly, bodies that haven't been moving, bodies that haven't been able to walk, bodies that haven't been able to stretch, are suddenly doing all these things. And the person feels elation, they feel relaxed, and they feel good about themselves. And they realize that it's making a huge change in their lives. Now, that's you can say that for when we talk about people with physical disabilities or like learning problems at school, but this is also very important for people who have been traumatized. They can be traumatized by war, but they can also be traumatized crossing the road, that they've been knocked down by a car, or they've been sexually abused or raped or something. And suddenly you feel good about yourself again. You feel empowered. You feel that it's not a bad thing to move your body, and you start to change and you heal. I think that's a very important word. You know, you start to your mind, body, and soul starts to heal, and this is important.
And that's something that you've written about in your latest book, just as we come towards the end of this interview, which is so fascinating, so many different aspects. But you've lectured around the world, you've taught so many instructors, you've helped so many people from not just Jewish people here in Israel, from all walks of life, from all colors and creed, all backgrounds. And it's been a remarkable contribution to Israeli society as a whole, and internationally with sharing your knowledge. And your new book, Horses Heal PTSD, Walking New Paths, is out now on Amazon. And just in a nutshell, what is it that you would say? There it is. What is it that you would say people will be able to get out of this when they read the book? What will they learn that they didn't know before?
I think for the person who doesn't know anything about post-trauma and horses, they will be able to learn about both. I put in the book because I believe in this, that we need to think about the history of the horse and the way humans and horses have lived together in the past and how we are living together today. So people will learn from the history about the horse, but they will also learn about post-trauma and what a very serious condition this is, and how we can help people with post-trauma heal. In the book, I've got a whole chapter on sexual abuse and rape, and even I've covered children who have been abused, and how they've come to the horses and how that they've been able to cope with their lives and face the reality. And in the book, I explain how important it is to find out about your whole self. And the side of you that you keep hidden from, even it's down in the depths. It's very important to bring all of this up to the surface if you want to try and help yourself or to move forward in your life, to move forward in life. And I'm just going to go back. I don't think I'm PTSD, but I certainly experienced trauma. And it's very hard even in our conversation, Paul, just now, when I start talking about my son, I bring up the trauma inside me, and I have to deal with it. I have to sit and talk to you and deal with it. And I understand that now. But people who have been through terrible experiences in their life, and people who have PTSD, they often come to the horse and they haven't reached that point where they can manage their trauma and their really, really sad and rejected side of their mind. And I can just say that over a period of time, it doesn't happen in 5 minutes, it can take a couple of years. We can really help people manage themselves, and it's a kind of self-help thing in the end.
Well, I think it'll be a fascinating read for anybody that has been touched or is even interested in these subjects. And Anita, on behalf of Real Israel and on behalf of the thousands of people in Israel across all the societies that you've helped and beyond these borders, I want to thank you very much for joining us and wish more power to your elbow and keep on keeping on helping so many people. Thanks very much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you very much.
And to you for joining us, thanks very much. We'll be back with more at Real Israel with more remarkable people like Anita. We'll wish you the very best, and bye-bye for now.